haven't we made it our 3 ways to make video?
I don't know, because we're just waiting for an idea of what we can do. Hello everyone, this is Daniel, aka B-Bell Dan.
And my name is Jack, and welcome to 3 Ways to Make.
Yes, this is the series where we show you 3 different ways that you can make props, do scenes, or special effects seen in movies. So for this episode, we're going to go ahead and do a very famous prop from a classic horror villain.
And that prop's going to be Freddy Krueger's signature handed glove from Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes, so we're going to go ahead and get started with that. And for the very first prop, we are going to go the cheap and easy route, and we're going to be primarily making it out of cardboard.
Let's get started.
To do this project, you're going to need some cardboard,
One glove,
some scissors to go ahead and cut the cardboard with. Optionally, you can use an X-Acto knife.
hot glue gun,
Some of these brass fasteners that you can find at just about any store that sells office supplies. A variety of different templates. These are templates that I've designed and cut out using some index cards, some miscellaneous paints.
don't forget about paintbrushes. Alright, we're going to make this glove my size, but be sure to scale the templates to fit you.
Our first thing we're going to do is we're going to use these templates. These are templates that we've made. All that I did was take Jack's hand, put it on some index cards, and kind of traced out the pattern around his hand. And what Jack's going to go ahead and do is he's going to take these and he's going to trace these out onto the cardboard. And while he's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and get started with the glove. So we're going to go ahead and distress this. Okay, now that Jack has gone ahead and traced these out, and I've got the glove cut, Jack is going to go ahead and cut this out. So go ahead and cut that out. Okay, and while he's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and come up with the back plate that is on the hand. This particular template is for my size, so we're going to go a little bit smaller. Now, don't be afraid if your glove doesn't look exactly like the ones that you see inside the movie, because the glove kind of changes a little bit from movie to movie. So feel free to kind of experiment and mess around. Now remember, when he made this down inside his basement with whatever stuff that he had, so it's supposed to kind of look dirty and imperfect. So with this particular type of prop, imperfection actually adds to it. Alright, now that we went ahead and we've got all of these pieces cut out, we're going to now have to form them to fit Jack's finger there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and Jack is going to take those and put these in water and just drop it in. Once they get wet, you'll be able to mold, and then we could take it out and put it onto a form and use a hair dryer to go ahead and try to dry it. And once that's done, it will actually stay formed. Not that piece. It'll actually kind of stay into the shape that we're wanting it. So while we're waiting for that to soak, you can see here how many of these blade thingies do I have, these blades I have.
2.
We made 2 of these because one of these is too flimsy, so I'm going to go ahead and glue these 2 together to kind of make it a little bit stronger.
First, we're going to glue these 2 together and by using contact cement.
Alright, let's go ahead and do that. Now remember, when contact cement, it doesn't stick together when it's wet. You need to let that sit and kind of get tacky. Then you can put them together and it should hold real good. All right, so while we're waiting for that to get all tacky, Jack, are those pieces good and malleable?
Yep, heck yeah, 100%.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead. I found this piece of plastic. I think it's actually pretty good for most of your fingers. So we're gonna go ahead and take it and see it's very malleable. We're gonna bend it over this. Actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it in here. And the inside I think would be a good diameter.
Now all I need to do is dry this, and the best way to do it is using a hairdryer.
All right, so let's go ahead and put this under a hairdryer. We'll be right back when this is good and dry and ready to go.
Alright everybody, now it's time for us to start assembling these.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use these plain old little brass brads. All right, Jack, are you done?
Yeah.
All right, let me take a look at it. Yep, looks like it's moving pretty good. So what do we need to do now?
Just place that thingamajig into this.
Thingamajig, I think that's the knife, right?
Yeah, the knife part.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started with that. And what we're going to do is we're going to use some hot glue on that. The reason why we're going to use hot glue instead of regular glue, you could use regular glue, but hot glue already tends to kind of look like the welds that you would probably see on Freddy Krueger's glove when it dries. So we're going to go ahead, get this glue gun heated up, and attach the knife to the finger.
Yeah.
Do that. All right, now that we got this put on, we're going to go ahead and we cut out some strips of little cardboard here, and we're going to use those to just make some little areas where when he bends the fingers, you'll be able to grab a hold of it and move it. So let me see your hand. This one is actually a pinky, so we're gonna line it up. We're gonna try to line the brads.
Something sticky.
Sorry, we're gonna line the brads right along this joint right here. You see that, Jack?
Oh.
So go ahead, hold on to that for me. Reach underneath here, grab a hold of that, hold that on for me. Go ahead and put your finger in there. And go ahead and move it. And it's good to go.
Over here.
Now it is time for us to go ahead and paint it. You can pretty much color this any way that you want. If you want to get creative and everything, feel free to. We're going to want to keep this one as close as we can to the movies, right, Jack?
Yeah.
So we got some colors here. We have some orange, red, browns, to try to get that rusty color look.
And we got some silver and gray for the knives.
Alright, so predominantly we're just going to be using for the copper rust burnt color is some brown and some orange. So just, I like to tend to use kind of equal parts both. So Jack, if you don't mind, on a count of three. One, two, three. Oh, I think that's good enough. We're going to go ahead and start painting. Jack, you're going to go ahead and do this one here, and I'm going to go ahead and do this one right here. So let's do that. So now that we got all four of these fingers ready to go, plus also the plate, we're ready to start assembling this, aren't we?
Yep, just place them on the glove.
Well, first we're going to go ahead and take this back plate we have here and take a couple more of these little fasteners and put them on. So let's go ahead and do that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, while he's doing that, we're going to take this and now attach it to the back plate here. Just like that. And there we go. Hand in?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and try moving.
Oh man.
All right.
Epic.
Now, if you're going to hot glue this onto their hands, I would suggest probably putting something underneath that. I'm just going to go ahead for protection. I'm going to go ahead and use my own hand as kind of a way.
You're going to sacrifice.
That's what I am willing to do for you, my son. Like that. Go ahead, try it.
There we go, yeah.
And once again, if you want to use some of these same rivets to go ahead and rivet into this, you're more than welcome to. But I think for this particular case, that way these rivets aren't really cutting into his hand. We're just going to just leave the hot glue on. Now to get those rivets on, the look of the rivets, we're going to take some of these and break off these. Let's see, can I use some scissors on these? Let's try that. Yep, we can use some scissors. Don't use a good pair of scissors to do that. That could dull the scissors real good. And there. Okay, that's good. Probably a little bit too much. That's all right. And voila. So if you want to, you could stop at this point, but you could also go through and weather it a little bit and give it a little bit more detail to make it look a little bit more realistic. What do you think, Jack? You want to do that, or you want to keep it just as is?
Actually, I want to make it look realistic.
You want to make it look realistic?
Yeah.
All right, so from this point, now you can go ahead and go through the optional point of weathering it, which primarily involves a little bit more paint. So let's go ahead and get to that. All right, to go ahead and weather it, I'm just going to use some of the straight black or straight brown. We're also going to go ahead and use some red for the blood and a little bit of this silver. So when you weather it, you just want to just get just very little bit on the brush and just go through and just kind of just hit it with the highlights a little bit. Just like that right there. But what else, well, what does Freddy use this glove for the most?
Kebabs.
Kebabs? What else? What does he kebab?
People.
He kills a lot of people. And by doing that, what does he get a lot on his glove?
Blood.
Blood. So we need to also go ahead and get some blood into this. And the straight brown, we're going to kind of go through and let me get some of this, kind of clean, dirty these up a bit.
Yeah. With very low money and a lot of work, you too can have your very own Freddy Krueger glove.
Yes, that is true. This pretty much cost almost nothing. Once again, it was probably about $1 for the glove if you consider how much it was in a pack, plus only the one side. The cardboard was from a box that we left over. The glue sticks, the gun, the paints and stuff we've already had. If you don't have that, you have to factor into that cost. But it really wasn't that difficult, and it's very easy to make. But that's not the only way that we can make one of those.
Not over yet.
Yeah, what do you mean? It's not over yet. We have another way to try making it?
No, we have 2 other ways to make.
Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the second option.
Yeah.
Right. For the second glove, we're pretty much going to be following mostly the same process that we did with the first glove. A few differences here, mainly because of the different type of material that we're going to be using.
And for this project, we're going to need
Polystyrene. These are sheets that you can find online, maybe at a couple of hobby stores. To cut the polystyrene, we're going to be using an X-Acto knife.
And maybe you can use some scissors.
Yes, scissors can work, especially on some of the thinner pieces.
And of course, we're going to need some gloves.
We're also going to be reusing those same brad fasteners, as well as also some brass rivets that we have bought.
And also some glue, whatever this says, test stores.
That is model glue.
Model glue.
Yes, some model glue. And you can also use the hot glue gun again.
Yep.
And for this part here, if you are a kid, I recommend that you go ahead and get your parents' permission and maybe even their help, because it was recommended that you need a high temp gun. So what do you say, Jack? Let's go ahead and get started.
Yep, let's get started.
All right. The first thing that we need to go ahead and do is, just like with the first one, is take the polystyrene and take our templates and go ahead and trace out that template onto the polystyrene.
Like with the previous glove, we're just going to take some templates and trace them out onto the polystyrene using a pencil, Sharpie, or what we're using is a charcoal pencil. And then after that, just cut them out. You can use scissors on the thinner pieces or just a very sharp X-Acto knife and it'll just pop right out. Here I am cutting out the back plate here. Once again, just use a X-Acto knife. With a little bit of work, you should be able to pop it right out. Polystyrene is a pretty durable material, but it can be easily scored and broken loose along those score lines.
Now we got these pieces cut out. We need to shape them.
Yes, and there's a couple of ways that you can do this. For one, you could put it into a stove, put it on a heat such as like 350 degrees, and leave it in for about a minute at a time until it starts to actually kind of melt somewhat, feel a little bit wobbly, and then you can mold it into whatever shape that you need. And once it pulls down, retains that shape. However, though, we are going to be using a heat gun, and once again, if you are a kid, I recommend that you get your parents' permission and hopefully their supervision, because these can get hot, and even using a stove, you can burn yourself. So let's go ahead and crank this bad boy up and get to molding them. Okay, because this is involving high temperature, I'm going to be pretty much doing this, but Jack here is going to help me by holding this down. I got a form here that I'm going to be using to help me mold the shape that I'm wanting. So he's just going to prevent it from rolling off by holding those scissors down. So Jack, go ahead and do that.
Now with the heat gun, I am using it at the lowest setting that is available, and you want to try to keep it moving. If you leave it at one spot for too long, it could end up really kind of melting it rather than making it soft.
All right, see, it's starting to kind of curl. That's what we're wanting.
Oh my gosh.
It's now getting flexible. So then,
now this part you have to be very careful with. I am being an idiot and using my hands on this because that heat gun does get real hot. but you want to try to put it on your mold and heat it and try to get it to form the shape that you're wanting.
And once it gets up to temperature, just quickly start pressing it down. And if you have some like something wet that you can use like a wet towel to kind of help, that would really kind of help it. And we get it to the shape where we're wanting it. We can use that to compare to the piece that we've already done before to see if it's going to work. It is. Now we need to close up this end and maybe do just a little bit more work on that. So let's go ahead and continue. And we'll do it to the other one.
Now to get that end to close, it's the same thing. You want to hit it with that heat gun, but you want to be careful because as you heat it up, that's polystyrene is going to tend to relax and want to straighten out. So you need to work quickly on it. And now we're going to do the exact same process with the other pieces as well. Heat it up, put it on the mold, and bit it into shape.
And for the back plate, I'm going to put on a glove here because I want it to fit the back part of my hand, but I don't want it to burn. So now that we've got the pieces cut out, it's time for us to assemble them.
For that, we're going to use a drill bit and some fasteners.
So using the tried and true method of having an assembly line, I'm going to go ahead and use this drill to go ahead and kind of drill a hole into each piece of the knuckle here. Then I'm going to pass it on to Jack here, who's going to use these fasteners to put them together. So let's go ahead and do that.
So here me and my son is working as a group. I am using a drill bit and just kind of hand drilling some holes inside there while he is going through and using those brass fasteners to go ahead and tie them together. And we repeat this process on each and individual finger. Now while he's finishing up on those fingers, I'm actually cutting out some small little strips to use as the brackets that's going to go across it that will help your finger to be able to manipulate the fingers. As you can see here, I'm gluing them on and I'm just using standard model glue. Go ahead and do that. You can use super glue. It takes, of course, I don't think it makes it as strong as a bond, surprisingly, because this stuff I think makes more of a solvent weld to it, melting the two plastics together. So I think it's a little bit of a stronger bond if you use some model glue. But any kind of super glue or anything will probably work, and even some hot glue will work. As we can see here, put a little hot glue on as he puts the fingers, and just like with the last one, the hot glue also makes it look like a weld.
Okay. They are now fully assembled. We also went ahead and took the time to attach the blades onto the fingers, as well as some of these little hoops here that is used to kind of keep the finger on and allow you to go ahead and grab it and bend it. So we're halfway there, but what do we need to do next, Jack?
It's time to paint them.
That's right, but this time instead of brushing on the paint, we're going to go ahead and use some spray paint. We're going to take it outside where we have plenty of ventilation and spray paint it two different colors, kind of this terracotta color that I got here for the brass areas, as well as some silver paint for the blades. So we'll go ahead and do that. Oh, and we'll do that and we'll be right back.
Right now, all the pieces are painted and ready to assemble.
That's right, and while he's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and take the glove and start to weather it up a bit. And yes, we are going to be doing it on the left hand this time because I didn't want to spend more money in buying 2 sets of gloves and wasting and having 2 left hands. So this one's going to be a little bit different for left-hander people. So why don't you go ahead and do that? We're going to be using the brads here, the fasteners, to assemble the fingers to the back plate. And let's go ahead and get started.
Yeah, right?
Okay.
So while he's putting on the fingers to the backplate, I went ahead and cut the holes in the gloves, and I'm using some burnt umber paint to go ahead and kind of put a little bit of weathering on this glove to make it look like it's been a little bit more used and not brand new.
Okay, so we're almost finished with it. I just went ahead and had Jack here put it on so I can mark the spots in the back where we're going to attach the back plate permanently to the glove. But instead of using those fasteners, we're actually going to go ahead and use some of these double cap brass rivets that they have. That way we know that the connection between this part of the glove, the main meaty part of the glove, and the glove itself, the leather glove, is going to hold on real tight. So we're going to take that off, poke these holes and fasten these rivets, and after that we should almost be done.
It is now completed.
Yes, everyone, we have it completely assembled. The back plate has been firmly fastened to the glove using those metal rivets, and we also went ahead and took the time to weather it a little bit, so it looks pretty good. We didn't put any blood on this one. And I've also did something different, is that I went through with one of these little silver Sharpies that I found at the store to kind of give it a few little highlights and color in some of those spots and some of those welds, and it actually reflects some light very well. So I kind of like doing that. So that's an idea for y'all instead of using paint. Are we finished?
Nuh-uh. Heck no.
Why not?
Because we gotta do a third one.
That's right, everybody. The third one. So for the third way to make a Freddy Krueger glove, we're actually going to use metal, just like how they did it for the original movies.
Ooh, can I help?
I'm sorry, I don't think you can, because this particular method is going to use some high heat, some acetylene torches, that's going to get into a high temp range that could cause damage if you get burnt.
Like
and
1,000 degrees.
not 1,000 degrees, but pretty darn close. Also, plus because we're using metal, there could be a lot of sharp pieces that you can get yourself cut on. So I'm going to do this one solo, and if you're a young child, I probably wouldn't recommend you doing this way, but if you do, please, please, please make sure that an adult is helping you out with this. So let's go ahead and move on to the third way to make a Freddy glove.
Alright.
Alright.
So like I mentioned, I'm going to do this part by myself. Just like with the other ones before, I'm going to take the templates, and this time I'm going to draw them out on some pieces of copper sheets that I picked up at a hardware store. These particular templates are specifically designed to fit my fingers, and I am using a charcoal pencil, but a Sharpie and anything else I can make a mark on metals should work. So just kind of go through, and if you need to make any adjustments, feel free to make those adjustments as you go along. And now I'm going to use some tin snips to go ahead and cut those out when you get done. And you can use, if you have a metal cutting blade on a bandsaw, you can do that. You can maybe some scissors might be able to get through some of this thin stuff, but not some of the thicker stuff that I have. Just once again, be careful with it because these do leave sharp edges. In fact, I would go ahead and recommend that you use a file to kind of remove some of those sharp edges. Then I take it outside into the back of the shop. I put a round piece of metal into a vise to kind of use as an anvil, and I just go ahead and just start kind of beating it out. And just like with the other gloves, I don't want to go with perfection on here because I don't believe that Freddy Krueger was a professional in any particular way or form, so it's okay if I'm not making this look professional either. I actually want to keep those dings and those bends, especially as I go through and do this backplate here. I stop every once in a while to put it on the back of my hand just to make sure that everything works properly, and just hammer a little bit, do a little bit of checking, and hammer a little bit and do a little bit of checking. It's metal, you can always fix a mistake, but you want to try to make as few mistakes as possible. After drilling the holes, I'm going to use those same type of rivets that I picked at the hardware store and go ahead and rivet in all the joints. And as we can see here, they kind of just do both sides. And test the fitting. You want it to be snug, but you don't want it to be tight to where it can't really bend. Check the fitting on each of the fingers and then move on to the next one. Now here I'm going to go ahead and apply the blades. Now the blades, I could have used a real knife, but I decided to go ahead and just use a piece of sheet metal here, as you can see here. And what I did was I put a bead on first, and then I go ahead and heat it up, put the metal on it while it's still hot, use some of that solder to go ahead and go through. And this is a high lead content solder, so it actually has a pretty good strength to it. And from here I'm using the blowtorch to kind of go ahead and heat up the metal to distress it and give it a little bit of differential in coloration. I would recommend doing this first before you try to weld anything on, or else of course the heat is just going to remove all the welds. Now I'm going through and attaching the little points that I will use to manipulate it with my finger.
So now that all the dangerous steps are done and completed, it is time for me to bring Jack back in, and he's going to help me do the final assembly.
Oh, wait a minute. I thought you said you don't let me help.
Well, not with all this cutting and welding and hot stuff that can burn yourself. See, we want to make Freddy Krueger's glove. We don't want to make you look like Freddy Krueger, do we? Okay. No, so let's not, we don't want to have you look like that. Mom would kill me. So let's go ahead, and just like with the last one, we're going to use these same little brass metal rivets to go ahead and rivet each one of these finger pieces to the back piece. And then we're going to attach that to the glove that has already been, for the most part, weathered to the point where I like it. Might probably do a little bit more after the final assembly, but right now it's pretty good. And after that, we should be all done. So let's go ahead and get to it.
So with all the holes pre-drilled, I'm just going to go ahead and let my son help me out here. He's going to help me with the rivets, and we'll be nailing those in. And just like with the finger joints, you don't want them to be too tight. You want them to be able to move freely. He is using that same Sharpie to mark the points, the holes inside the backplate, so we can see where we want to cut those holes into the gloves. Once we cut the holes, we mount the backplate using those exact same rivets that we saw earlier. I went ahead and put the rivets on, and I went ahead and trusted my son that he won't hit my fingers and let him go ahead and fasten those rivets in. Now it's all there's left to do is just go ahead, try on the glove for a little bit, just check the fits. Seems like everything fits well. In hindsight, I probably should have went ahead and put that second little bracket on the pinky to help bend that a little bit more, but I help operate it, but actually everything seems to be working all right.
And here is the completed all-metal Freddy Krueger glove. As far as a more authentic prop goes, it looks pretty good. What do you think?
Yep.
So everyone, that is 3 ways to make Freddy Krueger's iconic glove. So Jack, which way was your favorite way?
Plastic. I mean cardboard.
You like the Now why do you like the cardboard way?
I like it because it's easy enough for a child to make.
Yes, it is. It just requires a bunch of cardboard, water, some hot glue, but you don't even need the hot glue. You can use some regular glue, maybe even tape, that'd probably work, and some brad fasteners. Very little parental supervision, but you still need parents' permission. Me personally, of course, I like the all metal one.
Yeah, look at that one.
It's a lot sturdier. It actually, because it's made out of metal, it's very similar to how they actually made Freddy Krueger's gloves.
Except for like the glove part.
Yes, I mean, I could go out and try to find all the pieces, like the exact type of knives that they use, the exact type of glove to try to make it more authentic to the screen. But I really didn't quite care for that. I kind of liked it where like this was my own version of the glove.
Yeah.
Kind of like a copycat. But let's not neglect the second method, which is plastic.
Yeah.
It's kind of a good medium between the two. It does involve some high temperature heat, but nothing terrible to where you can really injure yourself. Still need to be very careful though, kids. And it turned out very well. With a little bit more weathering, I think it would look a lot better.
It does.
So y'all tell me, which way do y'all like? Do y'all prefer the cheap and easy cardboard way, the expensive but very durable and realistic metal way, or do you like using the polystyrene way, which is kind of in between as far as price and difficulty level? Y'all let us know. And we're also thinking about what would be the next episode, so if y'all have any ideas, if y'all would like to see something and see 3 different ways on how you can make it,
leave a comment down below.
That's right, just leave a comment down below. Hope you enjoyed. My name is Daniel.
And my name is Jack.
This is 3 ways to make Freddy Krueger's glove. Happy Halloween, and I will see y'all, or we will see you next time.